Hello there. Thanks so much for joining me again today. I was very pleased that many of you seem to enjoy the little how I color in my coloring book with gouache. So I'm continuing to do the trees. I've done those offline so that I can show you how I do the snow on them. So for them, I used, again in my Dale Rani paints, I used a dark green, a bit of leaf green, some white, some ultramarine, and a little bit of black here and there. I'll show you as I color that one. I'm going to color that bit of the tree bark with fine liners, not with gouache, and those I'm going to color with fine liners. And this I'll paint the roof, but I'm going to use either alcohol markers or fine liners for those fine things, and I'll go over that with a fine liner. So I wanted to start with this. Now, I mentioned earlier that the Himi gouache tends to dry out. So does gouache from a tube. If you leave it, it lands up really pretty unusable, and you can just add water to your brush, etc. But each time you do that, you're making the gouache a little bit more and more translucent, so it loses its opaque quality. So I've been watching, because I really want some Himi gouache as well. I normally would just spray my paint with some water when I was going to use it again, but I was watching Lindsay the Frugal Crafter, and she makes up a mix with very little, a couple of drops of alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, and a couple of drops of glycerin, and glycerin is a humectant, so it tends to keep things moist. And she always sprays her tubs, so if you happen to have some of those tubs, she always sprays those. And I then tried to reconstitute this, because this was rock hard a little while ago, and I put, you can see it's still pretty rock hard. I put quite a lot of water on top of it. Now I'm poking some holes in it with the toothpick, going to see if I can hold it down with the toothpick, and I want to be able to stir it. But so this is what those whole tubs end up like. The reason one puts the rubbing alcohol in is to stop molds happening. So what I do to create the snow, I'm going to squeeze some more soft white out so that I can get on with this video. Once I've done the tree, I use either one of my small brushes. This time I'm going to start with the very small one, wet the brush a little bit, and get your paint sort of going. And then you just basically paint on snow. So I'm just kind of winging it. I can't really see where the drawing was, so I kind of am going with little bits, quite a thick consistency. And then I'll just keep working at it. I like this little thin brush. Does give you more control. I think I might be putting too much. I want to get the point of the brush. And one can also sort of do sketchy movements. So I want the top of this tree to be very snowy, and then I will I don't know if you can hear the sound in the background, but it's quails, not quails. We call them Santa in Afrikaans. I don't think they're pheasants. I don't actually know what they are, but they're terribly noisy and they're nesting in the garden. And so whenever anything flies nearby, they let off a lot of noise and they get very agitated. And then, because of course it's springtime here, and then we have all these little babies all over the show, which is too cute. And then I get very agitated because the neighborhood cats all descend. And now I do love cats, but I do not love them eating little birds. So that really gets to me. So you can see that as I go on with this thick white, it is activating the, whoopsie, sorry, I kicked my light. It is activating the green of the tree underneath. So now I think maybe I'll do this one. I want to put something underneath here. Maybe I'll just do little bits of snow on it. I'll try to make out the marks left by the artist, which I presume were for bits of snow or something. I can't really see them well enough because the gouache has gone over. I'm not trying to criticize the artist, please. But the gouache has sort of gone over that. I've been so keen to try the Himi gouache and everything, and I am using this hard as a rock paint now. I'm sort of pushing my brush in there. I saw on our local Amazon wannabe shop in South Africa called Take a Lot, I saw some Artex jelly gouache. They've got a small set, and I thought perhaps I would give it a try because I've been dying to try it. Actually, this looks quite okay now, just with the little patches of snow. I'm sure that as the snow goes towards the bottom of the tree, so it will be patchier. And you can see, oops, I keep kicking my, I'm sorry, I'm being so awkward. Keep kicking my light. You can see the green shining through, but I'll go over it a bit just now if I think I need to. Going to do a little bit at the top of this one. So I'm just kind of dotting. I do prefer the gouache when it's slightly thicker. It's does what I want. But I would really suggest that you just play. But it gives some shape to those trees. And to the kind of the winter scene. Now I want to show you how I painted the trees green. So just to rinse that brush off again. So I used some of this dark green. I'm hoping you can see. And then I just mixed it up. There's a teeny little bit of black there and a teeny little bit of ultramarine blue, which is the same as what I used for the sky, and just to add to the color. So this is activated beautifully with the mix of glycerine and water and alcohol. It's just the big chunks that didn't. So I basically just colored it in with paint. I'm going to use this other brush because it comes to a better point. Just to go up to the point, even though it's a slightly bigger brush, it's a softer bristle. So this tiny detail one has got quite a hard bristle. I'm almost scribbling. So I'm going to go over that mark there and just put little bits of snow on. I actually think it's easier with this brush. One comes and goes with these brushes, and it's quite interesting how one moment one thing feels great and the next moment the other does. So I don't do all the fine little bits in the gouache. I use fine liners or markers or pencils for those. It's just to go over these bigger areas. I think many of you know that I have an Etsy store, and I've been doing planners and some colouring pages as well, which I don't draw the colouring pages myself. I do the planners largely myself. I create them in PowerPoint or on Canva or whichever platform I feel like using that particular day. The colouring pages I buy from artists that don't want their names mentioned, and then they sell much like pencils that you buy from China that are kind of rebranded. They sell what's called PLR colouring pages, and you buy them with the commercial right to use them, and you can change them up a bit yourself or use them in any product. So it's not like stealing a colouring page or something like that. But so I've loaded some in there, and a lot of planners and printable Christmas cards. Everything's printable. Now, going back to this page, this tree is standing behind the tree in front. So now I want to add a bit of black to the adjoining area. So I'm just mixing some of that green in with this black. And just to kind of give it a shadow, and it will mix with the green as I get to it. I'm going to add a bit of the lighter green in the front. Just to bring it forward a little bit more. I don't know if I can pick up some of that white there. Just want to try and show that line. I've gone over the trunk of the tree now. But I will say that having added this bit of glycerine to this gouache has given it an amazing consistency. I've always wondered about that. It's with this particular brush, it's really just painting so well. So, is everybody else feeling, are you followers of the British royal family? My heart feels quite broken about Queen Elizabeth passing away. I know she was not a young lady, but I had a great admiration for her, and I was raised when our country was still part of the Commonwealth, and I've always had an interest. I've been watching all of this with sadness. It's the end of an era, and one can't help but feel for the family. And I also, being sort of semi-retired now, my YouTube channel and my Etsy shop and my attempts at KDP publishing and everything are all retirement jobs that I'm doing, and I'm doing things that appeal to me. I am still teaching a little bit, but I only have 5 pupils because that's all I want to teach. So I'm teaching people that I really want to teach and that are very keen on what they're doing, which makes a big difference to the 40 to 60 that I used to teach at one stage. So it's often been on my mind about how difficult living a life of service, like being a monarch, must be. I mean, a president has a term of service, but a monarch doesn't. A monarch, that's their life. And how difficult must that be? So now I want this fur to be a slightly different color. I'm moving some of this yellow-green into this over here, and I'm just mixing a color. I always do this with my paints. I'm going to move this little piece of white. Where's my spoon gone? In there. And see what happens. Mix the whole lot up. I wonder if I poke this about with my toothpick, if it will help at all. Don't want it to jump all over the show. I think I better put it down. Unfortunately, the mixing of that little bit got cut. My video didn't work, but I've mashed some of this white up and got it nice and soft again. And I've finished painting the tree. Now I'm going to just do the finishing touches on this tree. I just dipped my brush quickly into some water because it was too dry. So one definitely wants this sort of pouring cream consistency. And then I'm using a kind of a dabbing effect now for the second layer, and a lot of the time you can see, kind of press my brush right down, almost stamping, not like stamping your foot, but using a stamp, almost using the brush in the manner of using a stamp to get all the paint that's on the whole length of the bristle, on the whole body of the bristle. And so now I'm coming back to the white paint, and I'm going to try to do the same as I did for the first layer on this little fir tree in the front. You can see that this reconstituted gouache, even with all my efforts, is still quite thin and translucent compared with the nice thick gouache, the creamy consistency as it comes out of the tube and used with a bit of water. But it's quite nice to use this as a first layer. It sort of flows a little bit more easily than the thick gouache. So I'm just using this up on this little fir tree. I will do the other 3 trees off camera and finish the picture off camera, because I think you've been able to see all that you need to get an idea of how to do this. I'm trying to layer this snow in this kind of dripping look. I don't know if I'm wholly succeeding, but that's the attempt that I'm making. I find this easier to do when I'm not on camera, because then I stick my nose just about into the book and I can really see what I'm doing. I've got to be so careful to keep my head away from the camera when I'm filming. So I do hope that you guys have found this video to be useful, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching it. And I will do an actual scene, like a sunset or something, in gouache, and maybe I'll do 2 sunsets, one in watercolor and one in gouache, so that you can see the difference. So now you can see this little first layer on the fir tree, and you can see the difference between the trees at the back and this little fir tree that have the first layer of snow on them, and the one in the foreground at the back that has the 2 layers. In my finished picture, I did the stars and I outlined in white for the snow, and I used marker for the farm and fine liners for the tree and the birds and for the fence. There's a little bit of a dirty look as the gouache somehow melted the marker. I think some of my snow is looking better in the new picture that I'm doing, but I'm going to complete it off camera. And I'd just like to say thank you for watching, and I do hope you found this helpful. Let me know if you'd like me to do the 2 scenes. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful, colorful, happy day. Bye-bye now.